welcome to my channel. Today's video will be featuring a card that I made using the Stampin Up Swallowtail stamp. This is a very large, intricate stamp, and it has a lot of beautiful details, and I thought this would be a very good card to show you today. I also have the Stampin Up Detail Butterfly die cut set, and I'm combining the two together to give this look. As you can see, the card detail hangs a little bit off the card, so when I make my card that I'm going to show you today, I'm going to try to move that over a little bit so as much of it isn't hanging over. But if you're going to give this card to someone and not put it in the envelope, that will be fine. And if you really wanted to have it look just like this, you could just use a larger envelope. This card will not be difficult, even though it looks very difficult. I hope you'll try it. Let me clear these things away, and I will show you the materials that this card design uses. The materials I'm using today is going to be a card base cut 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. I have a black mat cut 5 1/4 by 4. I have a piece of watercolor paper. This is Bristol smooth paper. It is cut 5 by 3 3/4. I have a blue paper, which is cut 4.5 by let me double check. You know how it is. 4 by 3.5. Because this stamp set is so large, I also did a version in a larger card. If you didn't want to have it hanging off the side and cut like this, then this is always an option. But as you see, it's a very large card, and of course that will increase your postage costs. But it's up to you totally. I will show you how I did this card also, but it's the exact same steps. I'm going to be using the Stampin' Up Celebrate Everything stamp set and the Butterflies Thinlit dies. This has 3 different thinlits in it, 3 different butterfly sizes. There's another one which is an outline, and these 2 detailed ones. The Swallowtail stamp set. This is just one large stamp in this set. And the Papillon Potpourri. The inks I'm going to be using today is StazOn ink. I am not a fan of using StazOn, and I'll show you why. It gives a very detailed impression, and it is completely waterproof. So if you need to do something that you feel is going to blur or get distorted, you're going to want to use StazOn, but I'm not a fan of it. I'm using the Versamark watermark pad and VersaFine Onyx Black. This is my preferred black ink, but for this particular stamp set, I needed the extra detail that the StazOn gives. I'm going to be doing a little bit of embossing, so I need my embossing buddy. I'll be using gold sequins, and I'm going to be using a couple of tools which I don't usually use. I'm going to be using my Stamp-O-Majig, which is a stamp positioner tool. I'll show you how to use that. I'm going to need my detail brush for the die cut. I'm going to be using white embossing powder, and surprisingly enough, I have a little piece of wax paper which I'll be using also. And let me because I'm using StazOn ink, I'm going to be using the StazOn cleaner. You really need this. You cannot clean the StazOn off with the regular ink cleaning. And I also have this general purpose stamp cleaner. I'm going to be using all 3. Okay, let me clear this away and I'll start showing you the steps of the card. The first thing I'm going to do is bring in my MISTI tool. Because I'm going to be showing you both the large card and the small card. I'm going to stamp both butterflies at the same time. Hopefully this won't be confusing because I'm going to switch gears. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp the larger butterfly. So I have the larger piece of white Bristol paper, and I'm putting it in place so that it doesn't move. And I'm going to take my StazOn and ink the whole pattern. Wait. I need to put a glove on. I almost forgot. Because if you've been watching my videos, at this point you know that I get my fingers all icky sticky and leave fingerprints all over everything. So having some cheap throwaway gloves is a necessity for me. You know how neat you are or are not. So you can decide if you need the gloves. Okay, so here we go. So StazOn has a little extra protector that comes in here to try and help you keep the ink from drying out. When you buy the StazOn pad, it's a good idea to pick up the refill at the same time. The white StazOn comes with the refill because this pad will dry out very quickly. So hopefully I won't get anything anywhere except on the stamp, but here we go. Like you see already, this is a very deep black. So I'm going to go all over and make sure I get really good coverage. And the StazOn has an almond smell to it. It's really quite strange. Some people like the smell. It's rather pleasant, but it's kind of weird to have the smell coming up out of the work surface. But here we go. So just press it on. Be really sure you get a good impression. And since I'm using my Misty tool, I can always stamp it again if I need to. And that's good. Now I'm going to move this out of the way, and it'll dry a little bit quicker, but it's not as fast as the dye ink. So I'm bringing in my smaller paper. Oh, and I want to protect my work surface. So I'm going to put in a piece of paper. And let's see. Nope, that's not where that has to go. This has to go. Come on, magnet, over here. This is an extremely powerful magnet, as you can see. But you need it to hold the paper down. I am not going to be able to get it that way. Let's see. Maybe I can squeeze it up here a little bit. If I can't use the magnet, I'm just going to have to be really careful to get it right the first time. This is weird because I just can't use this magnet. I used it the first time. I don't know what's different, but here we go. So I know I'm not going to need this side, but I don't want to accidentally not ink enough, so I'm just going to be really generous with the inking. It's a little bit of a waste, but it's okay. And alas, I can feel my fingernails going into the StazOn. Yes, it did. So now I have little black fingertips on my manicure. I'm not happy about that. Okay. And again, press it. I should have put a glove on the other hand also, but I didn't want to stop the video and go across the room and get it. So it looks like another trip to my spa ladies down at Q-Spa Nails to fix the damage that I just did. Okay. And this is not quite right, of course, because I'm not using the magnet. Murphy's Law, so I'm going to have to stamp that again. Now I had just re-inked this. Whoops, silly. I had just re-inked this yesterday. So you can see how fast the StazOn dries out. So really hope it doesn't smear. But paper is two-sided, so if I don't get a good impression, I'll just flip it over and do it again on the other side. It will be fine. We're in this crafting business because we want to have fun. And if you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. There we go. Much better. See, I've got ink on my fingers. Okay. See how crisp that is? It's really nice. Now, set that aside to dry. And I will show you what I don't like about the StazOn as I start trying to clean this. So I'm getting a good supply of paper towels. And first I want to get some of this ink off, but as you see, it doesn't really come off. Not really. So now that I have the wet parts off, I'm going to, this is a solvent cleaner. So that's how it works on the StazOn. So you just go all over it, squeeze in the bottle. And it starts to dissolve the ink. And it is really, really, really messy. You can see that. Now this is the same piece of paper that I used before. Oops, wrong hand. See, that's why I put the glove on. And you can see it's starting to come off. Really, really messy. Okay, so I'm not going to make you watch all of this and hear me talking. I'm just going to go through the steps to clean this up. One thing I have to mention about the StazOn cleaner, you cannot use this on the photopolymer stamps. The photopolymer stamps are the clear stamps. And if you use this StazOn cleaner on it, it will start to break the stamps down. Something about the material that it's made from. So you will not be able to get the stamps as clean as you would be able to get it on the rubber stamp. So that's something that you should know before you start using the StazOn on your photopolymers. But remember, once the stamp is stained, it'll still work fine. It'll just be whatever color you stained it with. Something that you should be aware of. I just want to make sure I pointed that out so you won't be surprised if something terrible happens. So remember, don't use this on the photopolymer stamps. Okay, back to the video. Okay, now it's clean. So if you have seen videos of people who are using StazOn ink on their stamps, you'll see that the stamp is stained really, really black. But as you saw me do, if you put a little effort into it, you can get it clean again. The staining doesn't really hurt anything. And even though it looks like it's ink on it, it really isn't. But I don't like that. So I went through a little extra trouble to clean this stamp. So now that that tediousness is out of the way, moving on to the next step. The next step will be the watercoloring. So these are watercolor pencils. You could also use Zig Clean color brush markers if you wanted to, but I decided to just go with the pencils. Any watercolor pencil will do. So I have multiple shades of yellow and 2 shades of brown and 2 shades of teal. The watercoloring I've shown before on several videos, so I'm just going to show you the initial part and then just go through and let the music run. I'm going to take the yellow and go all over. I'm just going to do one section to show you. All over with the lightest color, and then take the next darker color and highlight the edges a little bit, and then the darkest color and add even more color at the bottom. And then take my aqua pen, and you need paper to clean the brush, and you get it going and you just run over the color starting with the lighter area, and you see the color gets more vibrant when the water is added, and I'm just blending the darker color into the lighter color, and it gives a little bit of depth and shadow. And you clean your brush by just rubbing it over the paper until it's clean. Same steps on all watercoloring with the aqua brush and the watercolor pencils. So I'm going to go through and play my brother's music that he provides my channel and finish up this coloring. Alright, I'm going to set this aside and dry for a second. And as I was working on here, I was thinking to myself, wow, I sure got a good impression of all the colors. And at that moment I realized that I stamped this landscape when I needed to stamp it portrait. And a couple of you probably caught that. But I'm going to persevere and go right ahead from this point and alter the design accordingly. You never know when you run into little issues as you're doing your work, but you have to be flexible and see the design behind the design. It'll be fine. That's my favorite saying here. Alright, let me go on to the next step. The next step will be the die cutting. I've brought in my big shot. I have my multi-purpose platform in and one pressure plate. So I'm going to bring in the small blue scrap, and at this point you need your wax paper. The die is intricate. It has a lot of, whoops, a lot of little pieces to it, and you want it to not get stuck in your paper. So this trick using the wax paper will help release the die cut from your work. So you put down your paper, then your wax paper. Let me use a little bit smaller of this because I don't need all of this. You could also use a dryer sheet for this trick, but I have the wax paper, so I'm going to use that. So I wanted to be sure that I'm in the center because I want to be able to run it through a couple of times and not have it pop out on me. Okay, there we go. Now remember the trick to make sure that you don't get too much warping. I have a number 1 here and a number 2 here. So when I run it through the first time, I'm going to use it on the number 1 side, flip it so that when I run it through a second time, I'm using the number 2 side. This will even out the pressure on the plate and make it last a little bit longer. My bottom plate is rather warped, so I'm going to have to give a little bit of extra pressing to make it go through. Okay, here we go. So you just run it through, and once it's gone through, run it right back again. And just to be sure, I'm going to run it through a third time. The third time is overkill, but I just want to make sure that I get a good impression. So here we go. And here's this, and this pops right out. And I'm going to move this aside because I am done with it. And bring in my brush, which has gotten away from me. Here it is, my die brush. This is going to send little bits of stuff everywhere, but you just run it right over the top. And the little bits stick into the foam. There we go. And the die cut comes right out. This little wax paper can save you a lot of struggling with the pokey tool to try to free it. So I'll just take my pokey tool later and free this. I don't know if you can see it. This isn't necessary. I'm just fooling around at this point. But I wanted to show you now I have a little die cut butterfly out of wax paper. It's really crazy. Okay, set this aside. Okay, I'm going to clear this up, get all these little bits of stuff, and then we'll go to the next step. Alright, for the next step, I'm going to do the stamping. So first thing I need to do is get a very small strip of black paper for this today. So I'm going to show you how to use the Stamp-A-Majig tool. What you do is you take your stamp, your wooden stamp, and this positioning film, you put it straight on your work surface, and you take the Stamp-A-Majig tool and you tuck it, tuck the film into the corner. Then you take the stamp and you stamp it in whatever media you're using. In this case, let me illustrate with this one because I need to stamp this too. So I'm going to turn it, and you have it smooth side up. This is two sides. One is rough, one is smooth. You want the smooth side. And you take the stamp and ink it up. You only need a light inking of this because you just want to be able to see it. Make sure that the film is tucked in the corner. Hold it so it doesn't move. And firmly in the corner, straight down and straight up. And you see now you have an imprint on your film. You bring in your cardstock. In this case, I need a thin white one. And you align the stamp image where you want it to stamp. In this case, I want it a little bit to the right and centered, but straight. There we go. So once you have it where you want it, you hold the film in place, you hold your work in place so it doesn't move. Bring in your stamping majig carefully. And I'm pressing down and holding the paper beneath the stamping majig as I'm doing this. And this, slide that out. Ink this up really good this time because you want to get a good impression. And in the corner, straight down and straight up. There you go. I'll show you again another piece because I'm doing two cards. Line it up. Okay. Ink it. Straight down and straight up. I'll clean that later, don't worry. There we are. Now this is called a Stamp-A-Majig, stamp positioner tool. There are several different kinds on the market, but this is the first one that I got, so that's the one I'm going to show you. Alright, now I'm going to move on to the stamping of the inside of the card, and the rest of the card assembly is very simple. I'll just go right through. It'll be very clear what I'm doing, and I'll play the music that my brother gave me for this card, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, that's the finished card, and I think it's just fine with the little landscape portrait mistake that I made. Let me know in the comment section which one you prefer. I like them both. So I have decided that I'm going to give this card away as a gift to someone. If you would like to receive this card, leave a comment down below and I will get it on its way to you, and you can give it to a friend of yours or a relative that is celebrating a special day. Thanks for watching. I'd like to thank my brother David for the music that he provides for my channel. He wrote another song specifically for this card, and I think it's beautiful. I'd like to invite everyone to subscribe to my channel. Please pass the word on to your friends who you are wanting to share some of these techniques with. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Take care.